Good evening, everybody. This is Jay Colodic coming at you with something a lot of you have been waiting a long time for. What you see in front of you is the brand new, hot off the presses, Revell of Germany 1/500 scale Star Trek USS Enterprise from the J.J. Abrams film Star Trek Into Darkness. This is a European exclusive kit, meaning it is not available through retail outlets in the U.S., at least not yet that I know of. Will it eventually make it to these shores? I do not know. That all depends entirely on the status of the Star Trek license, because the Star Trek license in this country is, as far as I know, held by Round 2 models. Although Round 2's license covers Classic Trek, Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine. Very large size box this thing comes in. How big is this box? This is one of the Star Trek the Motion Picture Enterprise kits, specifically the one from the very first movie. As you can see, the 1/500 scale kit box is just a hair bigger all around. Even the height of the box is about 2.5, almost 3 inches. This is definitely a much bigger model than the roughly 19-inch Classic Enterprise that Revell did about a year or two ago. But anyway, enough of looking at the box. You want to see what the contents look like. Well, so do I. Give me a moment and I'll show you. Well, looky here. Let's see what we got. We have an instruction booklet made up of 24 pages. Paint instructions, detailing instructions, the like. Be aware. Aztec panel for the saucer, at least on the paint instructions. How about that? Pretty cool, huh? Let's see. Some pretty nice diagrams showcasing decals and lighting. Although it's interesting, I'm not sure what these little X'd over areas are. Wow. Major wow. Let's take a look at the decal sheet. That is a lot of markings. In fact, there's probably well over 80 markings here. And you got these gray stripes, which I believe are for the edges of the saucer. Of course, they're straight. Getting them to conform to a slightly curved surface might be a little interesting. Vane decals. Oh, this is a nice touch. Here, here, here. These are kind of this circular area, this little square, and this one area. Those look very much like the markings that a classic TOS Enterprise would have on the bottom. Of course, they're a lot smaller. Very nice. Should make painting this model relatively easy, because you got a lot of markings that you can do as decals. Although probably for the best finish, painting I would still pretty much recommend wherever possible. Let's take a look at the plastic. Saucer section, lower saucer, upper saucer. Take a look at this. Pre-drilled holes for the windows. Very cool. Give me a moment. I'm going to take most of these kit bags out and arrange them so we can look at them a little more clearly. Well, there are a lot of parts in this kit. So I've only got a couple of them out just to show you the main hull assemblies. Saucer, secondary hull. I got to check my parts count, but I believe there are about 83 pieces in this kit, covering all the windows, all the other major parts. Saucer section, nice and big. Now the scale on the box is listed as 1/500 scale. However, that is still a source of debate. Most anybody that's tried to do research into the size of the starship from the J.J. Abrams films knows that in the first film, because they had a ridiculously huge shuttle bay, the ship was probably about the size of a Galaxy-class starship from the Next Generation. Well, in the second film, supposedly they have sized it down to be a bit closer, although there are some people that still say, no, that thing is ridiculously huge. Frankly, I don't care what side of the scale debate that you're on. I just like the fact that we finally got a kit of this particular subject. But anyway, in my hands, I've got a saucer section from a motion picture Enterprise, specifically one of the original issue Smoothie kits before AMT Ertl etched that, what I call the mall floor tile pattern into the parts. And, well, take a look at that. Diameter is very, very close. I'm only talking maybe about 1/16 of an inch or a couple of millimeters diameter difference. Let's see. Upper saucer with a lower saucer. But yeah, it's very doggone close. The completed model, according to Revell specs, measures 588 millimeters from front of the saucer all the way to the back of the warp nacelles. Translating that for those of us working on the inch system, that means the completed model runs a little over 23 inches long. By comparison, the AMT Motion Picture Enterprises measure a little over 22 inches long. Therefore, regardless of whether you think the scales are very close, at least the size of the parts are very close, so that some pretty interesting kit bashes should be possible. For instance, in my case, I'm actually thinking that I might use some parts from AMT's USS Reliant kit from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, and utilize the roll bar, maybe not the photon bay, and do a Reliant inspired starship kit bash. Should easily be possible, and it would definitely make for something a little different. Secondary hull. Shape on this little assembly is a bit unusual. Yeah, take a look at that. They've got those etched letters in the parts tree again, just like on the classic Enterprise kit that they did a couple years ago. Secondary hull's got pre-drilled hulls. One thing I do like is dorsal pylon being molded in the top of the secondary hull. Very sturdy assembly. Don't have to worry about a droopy saucer with that. Oh, one thing I'll point out, Revell put a lot of thought into this. They've essentially designed this kit to make it possible for lighting without providing necessarily any lighting in and of themselves. For instance, these two pieces right here, these are actually designed to go on the inside of the warp nacelles, just behind the Bussard collectors. And there's a decal that goes on each of them. here and here to provide the illusion of that spinning fan blade effect. But one thing I've noticed is that they've also put these two sockets right here on the back of those plates, but these sockets don't have any parts that correspond to them. And looking deep in there, it looks like they're just a set of flashed over holes. I think what they did was they essentially tooled up a set of either wiring or motor shafts, so if somebody wanted to, they could actually put motorized bussards on, just like on the 1/350th scale Polar Lights Enterprise. I'm gonna look and see if there might be an electronic option rather than going with motorization, but it's nice to know that it's there. Getting back to the secondary hull, very sturdy assembly right here as well. A little bit of flex, but once you add the spine section, that's going to make for a very, very strong sub-assembly. And if you notice, parts thickness, parts are not very, very thick at all. Therefore, should be able to pass a set of wires through there to light the warp engines, to do whatever it is you want to or need to do. Kudos, Revell. Good job. I like that. Additional sub-assemblies. I'd have to look at the instructions. I do know these little areas up here are, well, on the classic Enterprise they'd be the reactor cooling loops for the warp nacelles. I don't know what they call them on this ship. Obviously they've got more visual styling cue rather than being something functional, and considering how goofy the layout of the interior sets are on this ship, I couldn't begin to tell you whether anybody has tried to come up with an internal deck layout. Shuttle bay doors, nice detailing on there. If somebody wanted to, they could probably open up the shuttle bay in order to render a nice little interior. Although the question is going to be, do you do it according to the first film or the second film? The 2009 Star Trek or Into Darkness. That's your choice. Next set of parts, the warp nacelles. Now, these have been some of the more controversial pieces on the ship because they are pretty front heavy and there aren't too many straight lines on them. They are a very slopey look, almost like almost like a medieval suit of armor in terms of the styling. And I do admit, when I first saw them, I thought, okay, they look a little strange, but I'm warming up to them. I do admit these have got a lot of mass in them. It might cause some difficulties in other Starship kit bashes to try to get that linear, sleek look, but I will say this: they do look like they have some power in them. Just showing how tapered they are. This is a set of engine nacelles from a later issue AMT Erdl kit. As you can see, the length of the warp nacelles is similar, but these are a little longer. Look how fat they are in the front. That is different. Pretty cool. I think it'll work just fine with... I think they look just fine on the Enterprise. It's just that, I don't know, if I do a Reliance style kit bash, I might have to do some things to try to alter their appearance a little. But anyway, other thing I'll point out about these pieces is you've got these little exposed veins right here. They're actual clear pieces that stick in there. So therefore, when you light your model, not only can you light the Bussard collectors, but you can also light those little emitters that run down this spine section to kind of show the ship going into warp drive. That's a very nice effect. I like that. Looking at right here, you've still got a couple of holes in the mounting point so that you can pass wires through it. Don't have to drill any holes, at least not too many holes. Just got to open up maybe a couple of additional flashed over areas. The gluing surface is nice and big, so if you're a halfway decent model builder, you should be able to get this thing to align just nice without having to worry about saucer or nacelle droop. Although I admit with these guys, it's going to be kind of tricky to make sure that these things stay exactly level, considering there isn't really a straight line on the top or the bottom due to the taper. This right here, D parts, has got portion of the aft impulse deck spine that goes on the saucer. There's the impulse engines, although you'll notice they have been molded in one piece in opaque white plastic. They haven't punched the holes out for that grill pattern. However, as I see it, a pin vise can make short work of that probably in an hour or two. And the beauty of it is since the plastic is opaque and not clear, it'll make it much easier to light block. The impulse deck, okay, I don't know if I'm necessarily spoiling this too much, because if you're interested in this kit, you've likely seen the new film, but at the end of Into Darkness, the Enterprise does have a little bit of a refit, and as a result, the impulse deck is much bigger. Hopefully we'll see somebody do an aftermarket part for that in the not too distant future. This is you could say it's the B and C deck teardrop that goes on the upper saucer, although it's a lot more shallow than that. These two arms right here are not actually for the starship itself. These are part of the the left and right halves for the support stand. But a couple of internal supports. Yeah, I saw these assemblies on the classic Enterprise, and near as I can tell, they're intended to be some kind of they look like they're intended to be some sort of a combination strong back spine support for the secondary hull, and also maybe a battery tray, since I believe it looks to me like you could probably get a couple of AAA batteries in there, or possibly even a LiPo pack. I don't know. That's clever. Continuing on, here's the C parts tree. Starfleet Arrowhead stand, nice and big. Even if you don't use it for this particular model, I think it'd be well utilized in some other model. Additional parts, another part of the upper saucer. Bridge dome, complete with those 3 window slits. Now, one of the things that I have noticed is that for the Into Darkness version of the ship, these side emitters, of course this front one actually is also the viewport for the bridge, which also acts as a view screen, kind of in a head-up display style. They've actually increased the height of these to imply that the ship is actually smaller than it was in the first film. Looking at edge on, I would say if somebody was pretty ambitious, they could probably develop a very tiny bridge deck to go right behind that center window. Lighting it might be kind of a chore to make sure that it's casting light the same as the other assemblies, but well, it's a challenge, not an insurmountable one, but a challenge nonetheless. The lower sensor dome on the saucer and then the mount for it. Very, very well done. Clear parts trees. I'm not taking these out of the bag mainly because I want to keep them nice and protected, plus there's a lot of little parts that I don't want to lose. But got the clear part for the bridge, for those three view screens / emitters. Domes for the upper and lower saucer. These are the Bussard collectors, and they've got a nice light grid pattern on them. They almost They almost look like the front of an old style airship, like a Zeppelin, or even the Goodyear blimp. Navigational deflector is molded in clear. It's going to be a bit of a challenge to light it, but as I see with the deflector, I think if I do the front of that deflector in clear blue, and then maybe on the back side if I do it in silver, then in the copper color, I should be able to try to get some light to cast rather nicely and produce a bit of that glow. These are the parts for the back of the warp nacelles, so you can light them up nice and bright. Additional reinforcement parts. These little zigzag areas are intended for the warp engines. All in all, they've done a really good job with these. I mean, these are basically insert style lights, just like what in Windows, just like what Round 2 did with the 1/350th Enterprise, and also like what Revell did with their classic Enterprise kit. So, lighting this kit should not be that much of a problem at all. Of course, to get the light to diffuse really nice on the windows, I highly recommend lightly sanding them to give them a nice frosting. That should get the light to emit properly with very few hot spots, and also help obscure what's on the inside. One of the things that's on my wish list is if Paragraphics is listening, it would be really nice to see some fan detail to go on the inside of these Bussard collectors. Of course, if I use a circuit board to try to represent that spinning detail as opposed to actually putting a motor in there like on the 1/350th Enterprise, fan detail may not do much, but it might be kind of nice to see it when the model is powered down, having a little bit of fan blade detail glinting through the domes. All in all, I like what I see. Let's take one more look at the decal sheet. Once again, as I said before, very nicely designed, very big. Markings, from what I see, look very accurate. You got these really tiny Starfleet pennants that go on the side of the secondary hull. In fact, these things are so small that they almost look like Starfleet pennants you'd find on a 1/2500 scale AMT Starship kit. The NCC 1701 numbers, they look pretty good. Only minor inaccuracy that somebody else pointed out to me was that the 7, the back of it is not shaped right. The back edge actually should be cut in a little more straight up and down, so the slow part of the 7, as it transitions into the top part of the 7. Consult reference photos on that. That being said, it would be a relatively easy fix to do it. Just a simple snip with the scissors to get it shaped right, and then with the excess skinny black line decal material, you can piece together something that looks good. I'm sure if there's other problems, though, the decal aftermarket will be along shortly to give us what we need to correct it fully. My decal sheet, very good shape. I've only got like a couple of little tiny dings on this blue area, which I think is part of the aft spine. But I'm probably going to paint that anyway, if I can get the color to match properly. Well, so what do I think? I think we got a winner on our hands. One thing that the camera does not register hardly at all, but which my eye can looking at the stuff, is these deflector grid and panel lines are positively petite. The deflector grid on the saucer looks very good, but they got such fine panel lines on the secondary hull here, recessed. There are also some slight raised panel lines that, if you're careless with your primer coats, you might actually obscure some of that detail. This is a much bigger improvement This is a very good improvement over the trench warfare panel lines that we saw on the classic Enterprise kit that Revell did. So they threw all their resources into making this kit, and the quality shows. Now the tricky bit, how much does this thing cost? Well, if you live in Europe, it costs you 34.99 euros. To get one shipped over to the US, well, it's going to cost. The weight of my kit was about 2.5 pounds. The size of the box is kind of big. As a result, well, even with a US dollar exchange rate, you're talking about a kit somewhere in the mid to upper 40s in terms of pricing, especially if VAT is factored in. But you could easily be spending about another 20 to 25 bucks on shipping for something like this, depending on who you're getting it from and how quickly you want it. But until Revell USA gets a license to do the J.J. Abrams Enterprise in this country, going to Europe or even waiting for HobbyLink Japan to get it in July are the only ways you're going to be able to get this kit. As a result, the amount of money I spent was about 60 bucks. Personally, I did not have a problem spending that. I do understand some American vendors are going to be getting it. Don't necessarily want to say which ones because I don't want to get them in trouble. Just look online. You'll be able to find who's got it. But I'm very, very happy with my purchase, even though the amount of money I spent was somewhere approaching $65, $70. And if this kit builds as well as it looks, you've got an impressive replica in your hands. As soon as I get done with my classic Enterprise, I think I'm going to tear right into this and get it done. Plus, I'm also waiting for some electronics components to come out. But anyway, that's all I've got for now. I'll be coming back at you soon with the classic Enterprise build-up, the next part of that. I'm a little further along. Until then, thank you for watching.